Welcome back to Lost in Roshar, the ultimate journey through the Stormlight Archive. I'm Christian.
And I'm Jimmy. Today, we are diving into chapters 10 and 11. As always, full spoilers ahead for the entire Stormlight Archive. So if you haven't read the whole series, we'll see you when you have, because we're getting into the nitty gritty here on Lost in Roshar when it comes to Stormlight Archive. But Christian, my face is hurting from laughing. I mean, we're sitting here, pre-podcast recording, getting things in order, and I love doing this each week, man. I really do. We cut up, we have a good time, and literally my face hurts right now from laughing.
Yeah, man. It's the highlight of the week. And just for context, Jimmy just decided to crack me up, mention other bloopers from other episodes, and it was impossible for me to read this opening for the past 5 minutes, but we got there in the end. And one day the blooper reel will come out. One day, every time I mess up or say something that sounds way like it shouldn't unintentionally, and then it has to get cut because we cannot contain ourselves. The maturity levels are quite high here at Lost in Roshar.
Oh, absolutely.
But we keep it classy, you know.
Yeah, we don't always one shot these, believe it or not. Sometimes we have to redo the intro, redo the outro. So we're not perfect, but we certainly
contrary to popular belief, right?
Yes. I know people fawn over my ability to shine when the spotlight's on me, but yeah. So how you doing, man? You been doing all right this week?
Yeah, I've been doing well. I feel like I say this every week, but it's been a busy week, and because of that, I literally listened to these chapters a couple of hours ago. This is the first week I haven't really been able to take extensive notes, which leaves me feeling a bit unprepared, but maybe that's the secret sauce that we're missing.
Oh, I don't think, I don't even know if we're missing anything. Things are good. People are listening, we're vibing, we're having a good time. But these two chapters that we're going to cover today are both Kaladin chapters. And one is pretty short. And I think both of them have a distinct purpose for not just the book, but for Kaladin's character arc overall. So there's not as many theories and stuff to dive into. Maybe a couple questions that I'll have for you. But this is kind of a good little bit of a more mundane week, I think, because next episode we're getting into all three interludes, and Lord knows, Stormfather knows that there's going to be some pretty intense theorizing going on when we get to those three interludes. At least I can assume that just from their purpose in the story.
Yeah, I agree. The interludes, weirdly enough, with hindsight, they kind of start kind of tame. Because, I mean, the first one, like the Pure Lake one, is so random, and still 4 books later, it's really random. But then he gives us Shallan's brother, so you're like, okay, I know who that is. And then you're back to Szeth, and you're like, oh, okay, the prologue. So they are a little jarring, but as we go throughout the Ray of Kings and Words of Radiance, Oathbringer, they get really weird, and they're going to be even more fun to talk about. But I guess when I first read these, I was so confused. But in hindsight, as always with this podcast, we kind of see the method to the madness with Sanderson, and taking it this slow, you're able to do that. But yeah, you're right. These two chapters, it's kind of a nice way to wrap up part one, and to give us I just feel like we've unlocked a greater understanding of Kaladin by the end of this part. Really, these two chapters go hand in hand for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's crazy to think that we're already through part one. I mean, it's 7 episodes and we're through part one. Now, someone, I was mentioning this to somebody, and they were like, well, don't worry, because you'll have 50 weeks if you do 2 chapters a week for like Oathbringer and Rhythm of War. And I'm like, okay, so a year a book almost.
Yeah. Oh, man.
There's a lot in those books.
Yeah, man, we've got legs for this podcast, and there is so much. And then I started thinking about that, thinking, man, some of those books could we even do 2 chapters?
That's a good point.
It's like, do the books get longer or do the chapters get shorter? I think the answer is just yes, like across the board. But I just think of the end of Oathbringer, and I just think it's just going to be me screaming into the mic. And thank you for tuning in. I think we can all relate. It was the first book that made me stand up. That's all I remember about Oathbringer. Yes. Like, I was standing up thinking, oh my God, this is crazy.
if a book makes you stand up, if you come out of your seat while reading a text, I think a book has done its job.
Yeah, or you're slightly mentally unhinged in some
Yes.
way, or must seek medical attention. Has any
Yes.
book made you make you stand up, or sort of had that weird moment of
Oh, for
yeah,
sure, dude. Whenever a Storm of Swords is coming to a certain wedding, I every time I read it and you're reading the song that's kind of interspersed between the parts, my heart, I can always hear my heart. Like it's boom, 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 boom. And I also stood up at the end of Words of Radiance.
oh yeah,
I think I did a stand up at the end of Oathbringer as well, because Oathbringer was a bit of a confusing book for me, especially towards the ending, but undoubtedly like one of the most epic books I've ever read. I just felt like I didn't know how it was going to end because it just kept going, and I was like, where are we
yeah,
going with this? But I love both of those endings. They for sure made me stand up, and then multiple times, as I read through Malazan,
oh
just
yeah,
crazy, I mean, dinosaurs with swords for arms, lasers,
yeah.
crazy stuff. Those are the series that I think about whenever I think about big moments that were kind of like wild. And then I've read a lot of depressing Russian literature that lately that has made me like stare into the void, but that's a different type of feeling, right? it's
Yeah,
not
that's the
it's not
1,000 yard
exhilarating.
stare.
Yeah,
Why
it's
am I here?
existential. Like, why am I here? So it's
Yeah,
nice sometimes to go back to Kaladin, who is overcoming his struggle, at least in this little section here, instead of wallowing in it. So
yeah. I felt going back to the endings of these books, I felt like even though this ending of The Way of Kings basically boils down to Kaladin running with a bridge and doing a pretty good long jump. I mean, if you just look at it like really in a basic fashion, that feels like a blip in Words of Radiance, and then the battle in Words of Radiance feels like a blip in
mhm.
Oathbringer's last scene. It could have just been a paragraph, to be honest, with the
Yeah,
amount of crazy stuff happening. But even having said all that, the ending of The Way of Kings has a special place in my heart and could even top all of those because of how personal it feels. Like the achievement feels
mhm.
so much more like impactful because you've just slogged it with Kaladin for so long.
Yeah, definitely. And you start to see a little bit behind the curtain, especially with the interludes, right? Like the interludes start to
Mm,
open up like, hey, other stuff's going on in this world, and things are moving. Because for the all intents and purposes, we've been in a pretty close personal POV, especially with Kaladin and then also with Shallan. So to see other things in the world and maybe a couple mysteries with the Clear Lake, I think next week is whenever this thing kind of gets busted open a bit, which is
yeah,
nice.
I agree, and it's my only worry with this series and the Cosmere as a whole. I quite like not knowing things or
Yes.
theorizing, and
Yes.
I just hope I don't know too much by the end, or I know everything. I
Well,
want there to feel like I want to still feel like there's more to learn, and not be like by the end of
yes.
book 10, okay, I've seen the diagram and I understand everything. You know.
Yes, I agree with you. I think so Sanderson definitely has like more plans than most epic fantasy authors, right? And
Mm.
he does provide answers, which I do think is very rewarding, by the way. I think
Yeah.
having an answer for some of these crazy things and knowing that it isn't just kind of like this ethereal thing floating around, but it's something that's concrete that he can explain to you is really cool. But I
Mm.
agree with you for the longevity of the series that there needs to be outstanding mysteries. It's one of the things that is amazing about Middle Earth and Lord of the Rings is that there are just some things that are just stories in the story that you're like, well, what does that mean? I think Kingkiller also has this. I don't think everything in Kingkiller will be explained. And then A Song of Ice and Fire is that's its biggest standing point is there's theories about things that don't even matter, which can be silly, but that's the kind of text it is. It leads itself to or lends itself to being thought about and to being speculated about, which is really cool. And I really do hope that in Stormlight we have that. I think we do. I think that Safe Hands I'm not even kidding. I actually think Safe Hands might be a good example. Like we may never have that answer, So I think there's little things like that hopefully that we can speculate for a long time, and we got a lot more books to go too. So who knows what gets introduced as we go through. But I agree with you. I do want answers to a lot of these things, but I also would like some of it to be a little bit open ended, and hopefully I like the answers too. That's always
Yeah.
Attack on Titan comes to mind. A lot of people didn't like the answers with Attack on Titan, right?
Yeah, it's like it's a delicate thing, right? Because with that, I love knowing everything. Actually, with Attack on Titan, because the reread was brilliant because of it,
Mm-hmm.
and that there's a high chance that will be the same. Because I mean, the reread right now with what we know is
Oh,
awesome,
yeah.
but there's still room to speculate. Maybe by the end of 10 books, I actually won't feel this way, and I'll be like, well, it's all wrapped up. I don't have to lay in bed at night thinking about like shard blades anymore. I can just be happy. I can just be happy it's done and understand the Cosmere. But I think I'm just enjoying the journey as said in the Way of Kings. Journey
Would you
before
say,
destination.
yeah, Journey Before Destination? Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
one might say that.
What a way to bring it back. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is going to be a pretty reflective 2 chapters we're going to go over, but we got a weekly poll, and
Is that the Civic I spot in the background there?
that is the Civic. We're packing it out. We're going on a road trip, folks, and we have another poll for you over on Lost in Discovery YouTube channel, which is where you can also check out Lost in Roshar if you're wanting to use the YouTube platform. And we had a little proposition. Christian, why don't you let us know what it was?
It's round 3, guys. We've got Adolin in the car. We've got Yasna chilling, telling us where to go and what to do. But we need one more person. And I made a poll that was Bridge 4 themed. And immediately I texted Jimmy. I'm like, this was a terrible, terrible mistake, because then like Rock was just like, bam, the winner. So we mixed it up, and Jimmy helped me make this new one. So these were your options. The Lopen. Could have just written Lopen, but I respected his wishes. The Lopen. We've got Syl, we've got Navani, and we've got Rock. And I feel like, actually, for the first time, this is probably our most evenly split poll, don't you think? With the votes, it wasn't as clear cut as it has been in past weeks.
Yeah, and people get fired up about these side characters. If someone likes one of these people, they really stick to it. So I feel like people were really passionate. My goodness, about their pick, and it was the closest competition we had. But we do have a clear winner.
Yeah, and the winner with 40% of the votes is Syl. Did you vote for Syl?
Absolutely not. No, I voted for Navani.
I was really thinking that you could be like, absolutely, I did. Yeah, I could sell me on Navani, because she's at the bottom here with 11%. What's going on, Jimmy?
I honestly have no idea. Navani is one of the smartest people. I think she would make sure everything stays on track. She just seems also like a really interesting person. Like, I feel like she's also very curious, which I am myself. I think she would provide good, not just guidance for the car trip, but also just good conversation, and maybe would be a good counter to Yasna. Always, just being the smartest person in the room. I'd like to see Navani kind of put her in her place every now and then. And then, Adolin, I don't know. I didn't want Adolin in my car. I would have rather have been Shallan. I did pick all female characters, which I don't know why, but I did.
Well, I just want you to think about this, Jimmy. As the poll stands, right? We've got Yasna and Adolin, and now you're adding in Navani. So now it's a family road trip. You're like the adopted son. You've got mum and daughter and nephew and cousin. Like, I don't know, dude. Are you going to fit in?
Maybe I just want to be Jimmy Colin.
Maybe, has he had Taco Bell again, guys?
Has he had Taco Bell is the question. And everyone knows a road trip's not complete in America without some Taco Bell drive-through.
Not sponsored, sadly, guys. We're not quite there yet. Then the next most popular was Rock. And I never thought, actually. Well, I thought Rock and Lopen would be very tight, because they're kind of really cool characters for similar reasons, like the cool friend, that you want to hang out with for a while that might get tiring after too much time locked in a car with somebody. Rock. Everyone talks about the food with Rock. Let's pull over. Let's make some stew. Let's talk about wherever he's from, which I can't remember, and worship some spren. He's from the Horneater Peaks. Sorry, I should definitely know that. And Lopen, he's that high energy friend that's like great to catch up with over a night out. And then you're like, I'll see you in a week, Lopen. I don't know about locking myself in a car.
Maybe 6 months.
yeah, exactly. I quite enjoy Lopen, but to be honest, it's like I haven't hung out with these guys in so long. It was kind of hard to gauge it. But I voted for Rock purely for the food aspect. I don't have that, man. I'm strapped for cash. I can't be going out every time. I can't stop at Taco Bell all the time. We're bringing snacks, and I want Rock.
Who's pulling off the side of the road with like a sterno can and like,
hey man,
cook it?
Hey dude, I'm Australian. We camp. I'm going to bring some bread. I'm gonna bring some sliced cheese, and I'm gonna be saving my money. Okay,
bro. I don't think you need Rock to make you a cheese sandwich. I think Navani can.
I'm saving up for the leather bounds, mate. I mean the cheese sandwich the whole way.
Okay. I mean, I think any of these characters could put a cheese sandwich together.
Oh, dude. I would that reminds me of in case you haven't read it, guys, in the first Law series by Joe Abercrombie, you actually see sliced bread be invented in one of the books. I don't know if they have sliced bread in Roshar. I don't think, do they I mean, surely they have bread. You start questioning these things and you're like, well, surely they do, but you never know with Roshar. Testament to how alien it is, I guess.
Throw it on the list. It's another thing we're looking for. We're looking for bread.
Is there bread in Roshar? That's the poll.
Yes.
But yeah, the clear winner is Syl, and I see why, especially with these chapters. Syl is someone you want by your side, and I think would be great on a road trip. Honestly, I don't think you could really ever get mad at Syl, to be fair.
Yeah,
or could you?
I don't know. She's kind of childish. I don't know. I guess I'd rather take Syl, Rock, or Navani over Lopen. I don't like Lopen.
Yeah, he's too. Yeah, you're not one for the like high energy, goofy, goofball characters, are you? You don't have a.
Not always. I mean, that seems hypocritical because I like Luffy.
Yeah.
But
I was just thinking that.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not that I dislike Lopen. I guess I just don't care about Lopen.
Oh wow!
You know what I mean?
He said it.
That's my hot take. That's my Stormlight hot take. Other than I think Shallan's more interesting than Kaladin in this book.
Okay, that seems like bloody freezing compared to this take. Good luck.
I'm excited for the comments. I'm excited to see how
people for you to reply allegedly to everything. Allegedly.
Listen, people are just accusing Shallan of this and that. I'm standing by her, even if I think she might actually be a murderer. I got to stand by my pick.
Mate. Yeah,
allegedly.
Well, okay, well let's settle it, mate. We've got Syl, we've got Adolin, and we've got who else do we have?
Yasna.
And Yasna. All right, so who's sitting shotgun? That was a question from last week.
You definitely take Navani. Oh, well, we didn't get Navani because people voted the wrong way. I would definitely, I'd be putting Yasna up front.
Yeah, she just her, just to even take it deeper, like to stop all the fun, stop enjoying these people. Let's talk about characters. I feel like Yasna and Navani are an interesting like comparison to make because in some ways they're very similar and other ways they're very different. It's a very interesting mother-daughter relationship.
Yeah, it feels a bit realistic too, because it feels like Navani is just as brilliant, but just from a different time, but also just a little bit older, a little bit more experienced, a little bit more nuanced. Where Yasna at this point kind of seems black and white. Like she's very like, this is how it is, this is how it isn't, and that's how it is. Whereas I feel like Navani has a little bit more room for that gray in the middle.
Yeah, she's got that wisdom. I would love to. Man, I can't wait to read about her childhood. Like, I want to know how they grew up. Her and like Elokar with Gavilar and Navani as parents. Like, give me some of that. I feel like that would be so interesting.
I agree. I'm going to propose one more poll
Okay, let's do it.
for the road trip. And the poll
Oh, really?
is, where
Okay.
is the destination? Where are we going in Roshar?
Jimmy, it's journey before destination, mate.
I
You
understand, but
misinterpreted
the
the
car's
entire.
got to. Hey, the Civic is going to run out of gas eventually. Okay, I
True.
want to know where people want to go in Roshar. So we should pick 4 locations. Have people pick where the road trip ends, and that'll be the end of it.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then maybe whatever people pick, we can do a little deep dive on the location. That would be
Okay,
kind
that
of
works
cool.
for me. That
Yeah.
works for me. So are we where are we starting though? Let's pick a starting spot. We starting at the Shattered
We
Plains?
start at the Shattered Plains because I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to pick the Shattered Plains.
Do we need like bridgemen to run up and get
They're
us
going to
across
carry the
chasm?
Civic and get it going.
Yeah. Just can we get a Photoshop of like Kaladin and Bridgeford holding up a Civic with you and I driving?
Any artist out there, we would
yeah.
really like that.
Yeah.
Just a
That's
beat
the
up
new
Civic.
that's the cover art for Lost in Roshar. Just the bridge runs. We're just
That could be the art for our road trip episodes.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, just
cool.
Bridgeford holding us up. That's so sad though. We're just a bunch of light eyes at that point. Come on.
I could see it.
Oh man. Well, I think it is past time we delve back into the past 9 years ago to good old Blizzard's Hearthstone trademark.
Yes, chapter 10, Stories of Surgeons.
Oof.
So this chapter, I mean, is largely us finally meeting Lirin, and his relationship with Kaladin is kind of explored. We figure out, we've had hints about the surgery stuff, and I think Kaladin even mentions his father was a surgeon, but we actually get to see it being done in action. We see that, Lirin's not always the nicest to Kaladin. He's a bit stern, and he is also very black and white in his worldview as well. And we see that Kaladin is your typical teenage son, who is maybe not as apt to listen to his father as he should be. Or maybe you could bring up a point that maybe he has some good counterpoints to Lirin as well. And we see someone with a mangled hand, the surgery going down. So, I mean, really, this is setting up the beginning of Kaladin's origin story in a lot of ways. What did you think going 9 years ago into the past?
I really enjoyed it, and you just go back to anyone's childhood and you understand them so much better. And immediately so many things start to click with Kaladin because this entire book he's been like, oh, a stub toe, I could use this root and this needle. And you're like, wow, there's a history there, but why? And I think I'm not exactly sure, but what I think he was listed as actually 10 years old in this chapter. So what really struck me was like, damn, Lirin's not wasting any time teaching Kaladin, these big life lessons and putting him into these like very confronting situations, seeing surgery like this and helping with them. Like, it's mentioned Kaladin's shaking. He's super emotional about it. I mean, he's a kid, of course, but that's what struck me the most. Like, Kaladin is so young here, and Lirin is like so damn. I mean, he's just doing the big lessons very, very early and forcefully. Like, it's all very serious.
Yeah. I mean, and it even says that this isn't the first time. He used to kind of be a little bit more shaky, and now he's getting better. So he's been doing this for a little bit now, being exposed to this stuff. And I think it really does paint a picture of where they are, maybe how the light eyes have it a little bit better than the dark eyes, maybe a lot better than the dark eyes. There's also some really good, just subtle details that Sanderson puts in here. Whatever he's talking about Lirin's spectacles, and he says he really got them out except for surgery, as they were too valuable to risk just wearing about. What if they were scratched or broken? Hearthstone was a large town, but its remote location in northern Alethkar would make replacing the spectacles difficult. And it just shows you that this is a little bit more remote, a little bit more rural. Maybe he also doesn't have the means of which to go and buy these things. It really does kind of set a very dreary picture of where they are, but also that's a very crazy thing to think about. Like, if your surgeon in your town loses their glasses and they can't operate, like, you might die from something that you should have been saved from. I mean, that's a pretty serious and risky place to live.
Yeah, and you learn that they are that Lirin at least is a dark eyes of the second
Dawn.
done.
Yeah.
So he's high up, but they're worrying about these sort of things. And I quite I enjoyed the mention of his fabrial clock,
Yes.
and how nobody really cares about the minutes and seconds as a surgeon would. So it's just like very cool little world building things.
Yes.
And I love watching the Fabrials and all the Stormlight tech kind of improve. And it's I hesitate to use the word steampunk because you kind of just it feels right, but it's maybe not. But it feels a bit like cool to see, like
Yeah.
mechanical almost. It's not mechanical, but it's like a cool hybrid.
Yeah, it's technology.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
technology of a sort, and it's here, and it makes sense for the energy that they have on Roshar for them to use it that way. I also really like the nod towards that and the details about the minutes and the seconds. But it's not all just about the surgery and stuff. We get some recaps of like what the Heralds were and who the Radiants were, and this is the by far, in my opinion, the most interesting part of this chapter. Whenever Lirin's talking to Cal, he says, "Wisdom of the Heralds," Lirin said absently, repeating a lecture he'd given many times before. "Deathspren and Rotspren hate water. It will keep them away." And I was going to ask you, do we know why they hate water?
I started to think about this when I was listening to it. It's we've got to go to Shadesmar and meet the Spren again. Because I did start to think about this, because I thought in Shadesmar, water is like flat ground, like the ocean is flat ground, and flat ground in our world is water for Spren. So is it like you're throwing rocks or like physical objects at the Spren if you're washing your hands? Is
Oh
that
my
what that is?
god,
I mean,
that's trippy. I like that.
yeah, but I don't know if we've ever seen that. Like, surely when they were in Shadesmar, I guess every time our characters are in Shadesmar, they're walking on water, essentially, in our real world. So we wouldn't see someone like washing their hands. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, it probably knocks them around a bit. Or I'm completely wrong.
I mean, I like that. I like it's
Yeah.
it's kind of a simple answer, but it also
Yeah.
makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
I just thought it was interesting. I was like, well, why is that? Certainly that's not just a throwaway thing, right?
Yeah. I thought that too, because I'm like, the Sprenner so well explained, and he knows it from day one, so he will have a reason, and maybe it is just that simple.
Yeah, for sure. Lirin goes on and says, "The heralds were wise beyond our understanding." Cal grimaced. By the way, I love that Kaladin goes by Cal. Kaladin is two light eyes. I'm Cal.
Yeah, I'm just Cal, man. I'm just Cal. That's his like sitcom show, Just Cal.
Yeah. Sounds like he's going to go surfing.
Yeah.
So Cal grimaced. But they're demons, Father. I heard of it. I heard it off that Ardent who came teaching last spring. That's the Radiance he spoke of, Lirin said sharply. You're mixing them again. Cal sighed. The Heralds were sent to teach mankind. They led us against the Voidbringers after we were cast from heaven. The Radiants were the orders of the knights they founded, who were demons, who betrayed us, Lirin said. Once the Heralds left, Lirin raised a finger. They were not demons. They were just men who had too much power and not enough sense. Either way, you are always to wash your hands. You can see the effect it has on the Rotspren with your own eyes, even if Deathspren cannot be seen.
Man,
you could actually take this, even if Deathspren cannot be seen, as him kind of saying, yeah, we can't see them, but they're still existing somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And like, how do you know that? Like, if you can't see Deathspren, how do they know there's Deathspren? Or are they just speculating? Because we know there are Deathspren. So what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, and is he just is he accidentally referring to Shadesmar a bit here, possibly?
Maybe, because I'm interested, because after Kaladin's hung up in the High Storm a few chapters from now, the Syl fights off Deathspren at some point.
Mm-hmm.
She's like bashing him off with her little make-believe sword, I think. So like, we do see them, because I remember I've seen lots of art of that. So is there a description? Are they just very hard to see or something?
Yeah, and
Maybe.
even then, I think maybe, I don't think Lirin's maybe in tune to some knowledge we don't know. I think he's just saying, well, if they can appear, then they have to be existing somewhere
Oh,
before
I
this,
see. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it kind of alludes to Shadesmar in a way.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think he's thinking Shadesmar,
Yeah.
but
Gotcha.
it
Yeah,
is
no.
kind of it is kind of a little bit of a trail to think about this
Mm-mm.
stuff. Like, oh yeah, where do Spren go?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I feel like this was a stand-in for me as I first read this. I was like Cal, like, oh, the Heralds, the Radiants, what's the difference? Please explain. And
Yeah.
it feels so clear reading it now. What I found interesting is just in their whole mythology is when he said the heralds were sent to teach mankind. They led us against the void bringers after we were cast from heaven. That part where it says after we were cast from heaven, it's like they left an old planet. So it's a cool little way
Ooh.
the story has morphed, and
Yeah.
that's like their understanding of it. We were cast from heaven. It's like not like almost like you're almost right. You were cast from another planet. That's kind of cool.
That is really cool, and I think that that's pretty realistic. We mix up details, we assign values to things that maybe aren't as valuable as we once think. Like, I don't think the heralds were sent to teach anybody anything, right?
Well, supposedly they were. I
Okay.
think Honor picked them. He handpicked them. Like you are my.
Hmm.
I don't know if they petitioned for it or he was just like you're really cool. Go yeah, go be a herald. But I think there was actually some sort of like yes, well, let's not mess this up like last time sort of thing. Lead us. I think there is some truth to that. But again, you research these things, you know them so well, and then you blink and you kind of forget it.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot to keep track of for sure.
Yeah.
So that part would probably end up being true. I think the
Mhm.
Radiants, hey, they were demons. Like, okay, so why did we think they were demons? Because at this point, we don't have that. So that's just an interesting, little hook that Sanderson leaves in the chapter here. And then we go
Yeah.
on, and we talk about Kaladin want to play with the quarterstaff, and his dad doesn't seem like he's a big fan of violence, to say it lightly.
Yeah, complete pacifist, really.
Yeah, and very much so. Sometimes as kids, we end up going down the path our parents specifically tell us not to because they push a little too hard. I know that I certainly was one of those kids whenever I was younger. So I think this is a pretty realistic depiction of a father-son relationship in a lot of ways. And we hear about Bright Lord Amaram's army, and we hear about stuffy old Wistilo or Wistio. How would you say that? It's like
Wistio. Yeah, is it Wistiow?
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, Wistio, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're hearing about Jam and a couple other things in here, and then we also hear Thelena said Thelena might try to come across our borders, and Lirin's like, Thelena is an island kingdom. They don't share a
Yeah.
border with us, Kaladin. And Kaladin's
Yeah.
like, well, they get an attack from the sea.
Yeah,
You-
it's so well done. I feel like this father son chat. I feel like
and
you and
he's
I have
10.
definitely been here. Yeah, yeah,
He's 10.
100%, exactly. Um, the whole you're so right. It really is that thing of like, yes, teach him, but don't like overbear him because yeah, we see like Kaladin. It kind of creates that what if scenario even further. I mean, he's still pretty locked into Lirin's way of thinking to some degree here, because he by the end he's quite excited to go to Carbranth and be a
Yeah.
surgeon with like this more or less like a scholarship, and it just made me start to think like, well, we could have had a whole different character of Kaladin. He could have
Yeah.
just been like Grey's Anatomy surgeon, just like a
House
hospital
MD.
drama.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
here for it. If Sanderson writes it, I'll read it.
Yeah. So I'm going to throw a line out to you here, Jimmy, because I was just like, ooh, I want to go tinfoil mode on this line.
Okay.
It just felt like
Give it to me.
it just felt like would look back on this one day and be like, Sanderson, you cheeky bastard. All right. So
Yeah.
you have a gift from the heralds themselves, Lirin said, resting a hand on Cal's shoulder. A gift from the heralds, you say?
I 100% agree with you. I circled this and I put a big star next to it. And I
Yeah.
said, does he?
Yeah, does he really? And like you said before, I don't think Lirin knows. I think this is cheeky Sando planting seeds
Yes, without a doubt.
because, like I mentioned it in the earlier episodes, the Stormfather only calls Kaladin son of Tanavast, who was the guy who had honor, who formed the Heralds, and there's like all these connections, and Kaladin just seems a little bit different and more special.
Yeah, when I remember when I read this
Yeah.
book years ago, and I did a review on my YouTube channel, and I said, Kaladin, and remember, I'd only read book one. I'd never read anything else. I said, Kaladin seems like he's a chosen one, and people were like, he's not a chosen. They're coming back 4 books later and telling me he's not. I'm like, well, yeah, now I know that, but like, there's
Yeah.
still room for him to be a chosen one in some regards, don't you think?
Yeah, I feel like he has this sort of greater purpose that he's going to ascend to. Sometimes I can't substantiate my theories. I feel like there's evidence there, but it just feels right. Like he's always felt like, yes, all the Windrunners and all that are very honorable, but there's something about Kaladin. It's just so intertwined with who he is, and just the way, especially the way the Stormfather talks about him and
Yes.
to him. I'm just like, this feels like there's more.
Yeah, I've always kind of defended that review a little bit. And I'm like, well, you don't know yet.
Exactly.
And
We
it's
don't
an
know.
interesting premise to start out with, saying, hey, what if I read a book where, a 10-book series where the chosen one suffers from depression? Like he's the chosen one, but he's depressed.
Yeah, like there's what's interesting. We were talking about the Way of Kings Prime before we recorded today, and what always stands out to me is that Talm, the herald who's supposedly like holding everything together whilst being tortured this whole time, was like a main character, just like totally chilling in the series. And like the heralds basically felt like a much bigger, more in your face role in that original version. And I feel like how our current characters play into like the whole herald dynamic will actually be quite a big theme. I could see a few people just becoming something bigger than what they are. Can you imagine by the end of these books, Kaladin ascending to something huge and knowing his whole story? I feel like it almost would be like almost like a religious tale of like, I could see him be worshipped for sure.
Yeah, and Sanderson's done this before in other books, so
Yeah.
I think it's certainly possible. I had a thought, and this doesn't really have to do, well, it kind of has to do with this because we're talking about the Void Bringers and Radiance and all this stuff. What if none of this works the way they think it does?
It's just complete bogus. I mean, in some ways, it is.
Like, there's something else that has kept the Void Bringers a bit. You know what I mean? Like, what if?
I kind of think that because every time I try to figure out, okay, when's this desolation starting? When's the Everstorm starting? How is this happening? Where are the heralds? Like, there's so many gaps in it, and there's so many kind of workarounds. I feel like this common thing of like the heralds go back, they break, and then like reset the game. Maybe, yeah, you're right. Maybe it isn't that simple.
I feel like there's another factor to the game that I feel like there's at least another factor, or it doesn't work at all how they think it does.
Yeah, well, at least in interviews and in quotes, Sanderson said Talon didn't break. So
and that's what makes me speculate. I'm like, well, maybe this whole thing is.
Yeah, there's a whole other side, right?
And also, like being sent to be tortured until, like, I don't know.
Man, I have theories, but I got in trouble for mentioning the Stormlight 5 prologue, so I'll hold off for now.
But,
for now, we might just have to. I'll find a way. I think we can timestamp on Spotify as well. I don't know about Apple, but there
we
must
can also
be a way.
just say, "Hey, skip 5 minutes ahead. We're going to talk about
and then we talk about it for like 15 minutes, and they're like, "No, you told me that Gavilar picked up a goblet or something." I don't know.
Gavilar gets mentioned here in this chapter too. It says King Gavilar always finds people for us to fight. That much is true.
Didn't that just take you back to Oathbringer for a minute? I was
yeah. Sure
conquesting across Roshar with drunk Dalinar.
Just Dalinar being Dalinar, man. Old Zaddy.
Oh man. But look, it was just like a somber chapter. It felt nice. I feel like flashbacks are really hard to pull off, especially in a novel.
Definitely. Definitely.
Like, it's the first time where I feel like it's really quite worked for me. In manga, it works for me way. It just feels like way better for that medium. For some reason, novels, I'm like, ugh, flashback, but not with Stormlight.
Yeah, you know, and like anything, I always, for myself, I always try to. I started out saying things like, I don't like love triangles, I don't like flashbacks, I don't like
Mm.
prequels, and the more media I've consumed, and the more books I've read over the last couple years, I realized that I do like those things. It's just I like them when they're done very well, and I do think the flashbacks in Stormlight are some of the strongest pieces of the story. I also do accept the fact that if a book has a flashback POV that you're not super invested in, it can be a little bit of a slog, which is kind of how I felt with Rhythm of War. I didn't like love those flashbacks as much as other people.
Mm.
But then knowing that I'm going to get a Yasna book, essentially, like the Yasna book.
Oh,
Oh, dude, are you
oh
kidding?
my god, yeah.
Like, I'm so in.
I think Sanderson has been criticized. Well, I don't know. I think it's self criticism or self reflection with the Rhythm of War flashbacks. He kind of wished he did the whole Parshendi perspective a bit earlier in the series.
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's merit to that. I'm also just such a big fan. I didn't mind that it took that long because I'm like, especially everyone listening. I'm sure you're all the same. Like, we're just so in it, we'll just take it when we get it.
Yeah, and
Basically,
also like it's easy to say maybe I should have done it earlier, but it's like okay, then who do you move up? And you know,
yeah.
hindsight's 2020. It's easy to throw those kind of like phrases out there, or I guess criticisms, as you would say, reflections. But truthfully, you know, it had to happen some way, and then this is the way it is, and you know, but
Mm.
that's just one of those things about flashbacks. You know, we get a flashback with a book about Lopin. I'm not going to be over the moon about those sections, right?
Do you want to see him with all his cousins?
Yeah.
Come on, man. I'll read what Sanderson like is actually quite interesting here with the annotation. I'll just read the first paragraph because it basically sums up what he's thinking about flashbacks. He said, "For years, I had been wanting to do a full-blown flashback sequence book. Flashbacks or non-linear storytelling can be a powerful narrative device, but they're also dangerous. They can make a book harder to get into. Nothing new for this book, and can create frustration in readers who want to be progressing in the story and not dwelling in the past. The payoff, in my estimation, is a stronger piece of art. For example, as Kaladin is slowly being destroyed in the bridges, we can show a flashback for contrast. The juxtaposition between the naive Kal wanting to go to war and the harsh realities of the Kaladin from years later suffering in war might be a little heavy handed, but I feel that if the reader is on board with the character, this will be powerful instead of boring. And for me, it was. It can be a bit heavy handed, but it just works for me. It just works. I don't mind.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Not everything can be this subtle, nuanced. Sometimes it's okay to be a bit like, it's like, I don't want to say it's on the nose, but that's like, because it makes it sound so negative. Like you said, it's like a cliche done really well, so you can appreciate it.
Well, yeah, and sometimes the story needs to be on the nose. It's like the whole showing versus telling thing.
Yeah.
People act as if telling is always a bad thing, but there are actually times where you do need to tell. I've heard this from professional editors that work in the field that are
Oh yeah.
actively editing, and they're like, this is a cliche that people run with, and yes, you do want to show your readers things, but sometimes you need to tell the reader,
Yeah.
and it's not always a bad thing. It's just knowing when you're supposed to do what and how you balance those two things.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it works.
And with that, we shall cut back to Kaladin in the
Yes,
present.
in the present, in chapter 11, Droplets, which does have a death rattle.
Let's hear it, mate.
3 of 16 ruled, but now the broken one reigns. Collected. Cha-cha-cha-cha-na-na. 73. 84 seconds pre-death. Subject, a cut purse with the wasting sickness of partial, I almost said Irish, Irali descent? Iriali?
Iriali, yeah.
Wait, what's the wasting sickness? Do you remember
Mm.
this? I don't remember this. What is this?
The wasting sickness.
Yeah. I thought that was a little bit interesting. And then 3 of 16 ruled, but now the broken one reigns.
What do you make of this? Because I've got a pretty clear cut theory.
16 shards, right?
Yes, very nice.
3 ruled, and that would be odium, honor, and what's the other one?
Cultivation.
Yeah. But now the broken one reigns.
Which could be taken 2 ways, in my opinion. I mean, 3 ways if you want to get a bit tinfoily, but
so
2.
So the way I look at it, the broken one would be odium. So now the other 2 have been trumped, and he is reigning here in Roshar, I guess, is how I take it.
I guess, yeah, because like broken one is the most interesting part of this, because that's where your interpretations can vary. I feel like the most on the nose one is broken one is because Taravangian killed the last one, and now he's odium. So in that sense, it's been broken. So it's like this foreboding message that foreshadows Taravangian taking up odium and potentially like kind of winning for a while. Another part of me thinks honor is already broken and splintered. So is it like honor somehow making a comeback? You know?
Oh my god.
Get from the Heralds themselves. See, Kaladin, like, ooh, is it? You know? Is it something big like that? Now honor reigns, because everything's meant to sound so ominous. But what if this is actually like a positive thing?
Yeah, wait, didn't Sanderson say the end of the Stormlight Archive is in the Death Rattles or something?
Yeah, that's what made me do the whole Death Rattle series. He said that the ending of the whole series is hidden in the
we solved it. This is it. Kaladin is the broken one, which does fit his moniker of him feeling broken.
Oh my god!
And Shard, our honor is dead. I'll see what I can do. Broken one reigns. Kaladin will become the Shard, and he will reign at the end of the series, and that is it. We don't have to read anymore.
I think we're done here. I think
wrap
we're
it
done.
Up. Pack it in, boys. It's a wrap.
And like, as I said, the scene will go, honor is dead. I'll see what I can do about it. Winks to the camera, flies up to space in his spacesuit, and thank you for reading the Stormlight Archive.
Tune in next time to Mistborn 80.
Yeah, exactly. Mistborn, where everyone's wearing AR headsets or something. But I actually do think it's way more interesting if it's about honor than odium. I really think that's actually.
I just love what you said though. Is like it's supposed to be this ominous thing, and like who says it is?
Yeah. Why do we have to be so? Maybe like I'm cold, mother. Will the rain stop? Maybe it's been a drought. We never thought about that. Why we got to be so negative, guys?
Yeah, we need to start being a little bit more positive, guys. We're letting Kaladin rub off on us a little too much.
Yeah, honestly.
Not hard in this chapter, huh?
No.
This one's a bit heavy.
This like I think this is one of my all-time, as hard as it is, I think it's a defining chapter of the Way of Kings and a defining chapter of Kaladin. Yeah. And probably the time where a lot of us, like if you've been through some very hard times and deep depressions or anything in your life, like anything like this hits hard. This hits really hard.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, it's one of my favorite scenes in the whole series.
Yeah, I was telling you before we recorded, I was kind of shocked. I forgot how fast the turnaround is from, going to the honor chasm to becoming an active character. And knowing what comes after, I am kind of glad. I shouldn't say glad, but I think it's realistic that Kaladin has a couple backslides and back into this, because if he had just conquered depression by walking up to the honor chasm and having Syl bring him his little leaves, in a little pep talk, I think I would have been somewhat insulted, possibly.
No, I agree.
Wouldn't have been buying into it, but having the full context of the 4 books that are published, this moment is pretty great, and it also speaks to Kaladin's larger character arc and the fact that anyone who's suffered depression, you'll get moments, you'll wake up one day and you'll feel like Superman or Superwoman, and you'll go out and you'll do these things and you'll have this burst, and then sometimes most of the time it doesn't last. And that's a tough thing to deal with, and we're kind of seeing that very first instance here with Kaladin. But yeah, this is a pretty heavy chapter for sure.
Yeah, I mean, choking out Gaz would be an empowering moment. I can see why things turned around a little bit.
Loved
Yeah.
it.
Oh man, the adrenaline I felt. I remember when I read that. I'm like, get him, dude. Get him.
Yeah, man. That's the moment where you kind of stick it to the man a little bit, and I'm always for those moments for sure. And then the lines of dialogue he delivers is just such a turn. You know, it's the world just changed, Gaz. Kaladin.
Yeah.
I died down at that chasm. Now you've got my vengeful spirit to deal with. It's like, holy good Lord.
It's like, oh, he's unhinged.
I died down at that chasm.
Oh, dude. Oh, that reminds me of I gotta stop referencing other series, but there was an Attack on Titan moment that reminded me of. But regardless, that hit so much harder because as Kaladin was walking to the Onagasm, and you think Gaz is finally kind of an all right guy, as there's there's a reverence for the bridgemen who go to end it all, and he goes all quiet, but then he goes, Lordling, leave the sandals and vest. I don't want to have sent someone down to fetch them. It's like, dude, this guy is despicable.
Yeah. I mean, this is the moment where you're kind of like, okay, there's no redemption arc for Gaz. Sorry.
No. But then you do feel bad for him later with Shallan. I mean, at least you feel a bit like, oh, there's another side.
One could say that is the symptom of humanity.
Yeah. Oh, preach it, man. That's the Russian literature coming through, guys.
That's a Tolstoy, boy.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that Gaz was so terrified of Kaladin. And it says he stepped back and Gaz hesitantly got to his feet. There was hatred in his eyes, but it was veiled. He seemed worried about something more than Kaladin's threats. Do you think Kaladin had Stormlight pulling around him at this moment?
I did. My brain did go to that immediately. Like, is there some sort of like, are his eyes kind of like turning blue or something? I don't know. There could be. I could see this being a up for interpretation moment here, and then in the adaptation, we see it very clearly. Like, yes, we see a clear indication.
I love how you say the adaptation as if it's been confirmed by.
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm just willing it into existence. I'm just like, get me on set. I'm like, no, Kaladin's pants are a darker shade of brown. Get that out of here.
Could you imagine the weekly podcast just covering an adaptation?
Oh my God, sign me up.
Goodness.
I'd be just so grateful. I'm gonna go tinfoil mode. It's time. It's all too serious, guys. Let's make a theory. So the line that came up to me here as he was, walking to what he felt like his death, he reached the base of the slope, wind-driven, rain pelting his face as if trying to shove him back toward the camp. Is it just wind? Is it nature? Or is this the embodiment of the Stormfather being like, no, you have a greater purpose. Don't do this. I don't know, man.
And to add on to that,
add on, mate.
You're cooking here.
Yeah.
To his sides, the more adventurous cremlings had already left their lairs, scuttling around, feeding on plants that lapped up the rainwater.
Taking notes, uploading it to the Cremling cloud.
The Kremling cloud is full. I'm just saying the Kremlings are always around at these big moments.
Oh, they all went like, "Oh, is our main character gonna do something?" It's
dude,
like,
what if? Oh my God. Okay, dude. What if the Kremlings are the missing piece of the Voidbringer Herald thing?
They could be. I could see that.
Oh
yeah,
my God.
And they're just there the whole time. And how fun as an author just to chuck in Kremlings when you're feeling cheeky.
Kremlings are the best thing about the series, honestly.
Oh, dude. Yeah, there's a lot that I'm so glad you mentioned that because I was just thinking this whole time. There's one other thing I wanted to say, but I couldn't remember. Yes. These Kremlings. Wait, can we I want to read it again. just to really know. Can you read that, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So I'll read a little bit before that too. So Kaladin
Yeah.
walked past ladders a little farther along the edge of the chasm. Then he sat down, legs over the side, looking down as the rain fell around him, the droplets plunging into the dark depths. To his sides, the more adventurous cremlings had already left their lairs, scuttling about, feeding on the plants that lapped up the rainwater. Lirin had once explained that high storm rains were rich with nutrients. Storm wardens in Kolinar and Vedinar had proven that plants given storm water did better than those given river water. Why was it that scientists were so excited to discover facts that farmers had known for generations and generations?
That's a cool little line at the end there.
There's Sanderson poking at STEM again. He just hates intellect. I'm only kidding, but it's just the adventurous cremlings.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a little. Come on, that's a nod. Adventurous Gremlings, 100%.
I do think there's something up with the
Their
cremlings.
little lairs. Once they got like a little laptop in their lair, they're like, okay, so Kaladin's like,
Oh my god,
he's walking to the honor chasm right now. Like, what's going on, guys? Quickly.
the hollow Roshar theory.
Yeah.
Cremlings have a kingdom in the middle of Roshar.
Oh, yes. Yes. And they're all just got like a database, like, sir, we've got an update on the Bridgeman.
It's like Severance, the Apple TV show, but with Cremlings.
Yes. Oh my god. They all got monitors and they're like watching all their agents in the field.
They don't even have thumbs, I don't think, right?
Like, yeah, they don't have like opposable.
They can't even hit the space bar, bro.
Yeah. Oh, dude, they're just like, they can make a thumb. They just get like 6 Cremlings together and they form a hand. But yeah, no. 100%. This is something. This is the Cremlings watching. I mean, they wrote the blurb. Where are they getting this info from? They're watching these adventurous Cremlings.
They absolutely are.
Yeah. I think the word adventurous is what has sold it to me. You know, because it's just like, yeah, they're yeah. I'm gonna stop because it's getting out of hand. I think my safe hand has not been covered.
But this is a big chapter. Sanderson, I think you said in his annotations, right? He had something to say about it.
Yeah, he said at the end of this quite long annotation, he says, this chapter makes the book for me. So, I mean, that's in line with how you and I feel about it. I'm going to read a little bit about... I'm going to read the whole thing because I think it's really good. And now comes the redemption chapter. This is the sort of thing I write... This is the sort of thing that I write books to do. It's the sort of chapter that I really hope to be able to pull off. That may seem strange to some of you, as it's not the climactic ending or the like, but it's the turning point of the story, probably the most important one in the book. I've said before that I feel epic fantasy is about return on investment. We often demand a lot of readers in terms of world building. There's a lot to catch up on and follow in a book like this. The goal then is to be able to deliver powerful scenes that make use of the investment. The reward for the early chapters is this chapter. It lays a foundation for the entire book. I brought Kaladin as low as I could bring him, and now we get to experience the scramble upward. Perhaps I think about these things too much. However, this was exactly what was missing from Prime when I wrote it. I was baffled at the time as to why the book just didn't work. It had all the elements of a good epic, and yet the book felt hollow somehow. There were fun adventures to be had, but no real impact. What it needed was this sequence, which has a lot of motion and hopefully heart to it. This chapter makes the book for me. Whoa.
Yeah, and I mean, this is also the signal that Kaladin is going from what we consider to be a passive character to an active character right at the end of part 1. So it is a bit of a return on investment, especially seeing what Kaladin is capable of whenever he grabs a hold of Gaz and has this, like, you know, really triumphant moment, a good revenge moment, and knowing that we're going to see just how capable Kaladin truly was even prior to being in Bridge 4 with the flashbacks. I think it's a good little dividend, and then the full return on investment comes a little bit later.
Yeah, you know what I just felt as you said that? I felt like Lirin was in the corner shaking his head at us, enjoying Kaladin choking out Gaz. Like, this is not the way.
How can you save him if you're hitting him?
Yeah. Um, Another great moment that kind of caps off this thing is we get introduced to Teft, our boy Teft, who had to remove from the poll because no one voted for him. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, how
I
do you
still
feel about Teft? Like just overall.
well, I vaguely like Teft's an interesting character because he kind of takes that turn and is it Rhythm of War where we get the whole drug addict
I think that starts happening
backstory?
in Words of Radiance or early
Really?
Oathbringer.
I don't remember. I remember it just feeling like, oh, there's a drug thing with Teft that I didn't feel was coming. So I'm curious to see if I see the seeds of that planted in the Wave Kings
Yeah,
or
so that
in
was one of my
Neverwhere.
biggest complaints about I think it was Words of Radiance, I'm pretty sure. But that was one of my biggest complaints, but some people did inform me that like he's been going missing prior chapters, like there's something up with him.
Mm,
I'm still not huge on the whole angle with him, to be honest with you. And I think that's one of the bigger moments in Stormlight is obviously whenever Moash kills him. Um,
yeah,
I I didn't feel much, which upset
really.
me because I have felt many things reading Stormlight, like
Mm,
like truly felt them, you know,
yeah, yeah.
and have loved it. But Moash killing Tef was not that next level. Moash has gone down such a dark path type deal for me because I didn't feel
Mm.
super invested in Tef, which is interesting because I love Tef in this book.
Yeah,
Um,
he's amazing, especially in this book. I personally I felt it
I think
quite.
most people did. I think I'm just jaded.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember the specifics, but I think part of that death was also like it permanently killed his spren as well. It's quite like it's
Yeah.
quite brutal. I remember that feeling of permanence to it.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever they like make him into a statue and stuff, it just kind of twists the knife, you know. And you
Yeah.
think about everything they went through.
Yeah, and I definitely am going to be giving my all to enjoy Tef more. Not in this book.
Yeah,
I do enjoy him in this book,
yeah,
but in the other books, so that maybe I can reframe it in my mind. Just because I can only
yeah.
be honest. My initial reaction to Tef dying was like, okay,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, not everything's going to hit. I feel like, at least in my, as I think about it now, probably the biggest death in Stormlight, unless I'm forgetting something, was like Elokar's death. I feel like that was done like
that
brilliantly.
I felt like the rug got pulled out from underneath me because I felt this arc for him building and him,
Yeah,
him becoming something, and I was invested in him. I was
yeah.
actually I love that whole thing. I love all the whole way he dies, the setup to it.
Oh,
Obviously we'll get to it in
yeah,
2 years,
yeah,
but I mean, I really love that stuff. And when Elokar died, I was like, no,
yeah,
like, I
yeah.
was
It
like,
was that no moment,
there's
and then like everyone's
potential
betraying
there,
each other, and
and
like,
he's a father, and I
yeah.
just
Oh, it
the way
was
it was
it.
done was very, very good. I'm not saying the Tef stuff wasn't executed well. It just simply did not resonate with me, which
Yeah,
it bothers me that it didn't resonate with me because I want it to.
yeah,
But I'm
yeah.
hoping that maybe seeing a little bit of the foreshadowing for the drug addiction later will make me more acceptant of that storyline, and that
Mm,
maybe I will see Tef through a different light. But with all that said, I really love Tef's introduction here. He's a little bit abrasive with Kaladin, and Kaladin's like, "I'm going to throw you in this chasm if you don't talk to me," which I would consider to be bullying. But Teft is great in this book, and I looked at him as almost like an uncle to Kaladin in
yeah,
some
yeah,
ways.
yeah, yeah.
The wise mentor that just
Yeah.
happens to also be flawed. It's a cool take on that, and I'm always here for like the older mentor.
Mm,
Character. It's just one of those tropes that I really enjoy. And he's simple. He's not just like Gandalf or anything. Like he's really nothing like that, right? So that makes
yeah.
him a little bit more interesting and human to me. Um, but yeah, I'm hoping to have a better ride with Tef post Way of Kings in this reread.
Yeah, and I was just excited to see like a member of Bridge 4 because it's been pretty lonely out here in the Kaladin chapters. I want
Yeah,
to, it's just been like Gaz and like dead Bridgemen 7,
yeah,
So it's like Teft, oh my God, and we're going to meet Rock and Sigzil and Moash, all the boys.
yes,
Um, so that's going to be fun. And after the interludes, like I said, like we were just talking about Elokar and Adolin and Dalinar, like half the cast of this book is just we haven't even touched on yet.
It's crazy. I mean, last week you said it best. It's like we should enjoy these simpler times.
Yeah,
Before we get into Lightspren and all this other craziness that we get into.
It's actually an anti-void light sphere. Like we're just gonna break it. Like we're gonna be into like deep into the semantics one day. So let's just enjoy the nature, guys.
That's
and the
right.
cremlings.
Enjoy
the adventurous ones.
The adventurous cremlings. That's what we should call our audience.
The adventurous cremlings.
All you adventurous cremlings out there.
Do they deserve that? I don't know.
I mean, I think cremlings are pretty cool myself, but
I mean, I tend to go by Christian Cremling. I'm owning it. I'm owning it. And Jimmy Stormblessed, how obvious! You couldn't get any more creative.
Jimmy Stormblessed sounds like a Elvis impersonator, honestly.
Jimmy Stormblessed has kind of a ring to it, though. I can't really argue with it. I kind of like it.
Yeah, sometimes it just works.
Sometimes, yeah, and Christian Cremling, I am, because I'm the adventurous Cremling. Like, dude, what's going on here? Let's make a theory.
You're always watching, bro.
I'm just like getting out of my lair. I'm like, oh, there he goes again. All right, uploading it to the network.
Oh man.
Man.
One thing I wanted to point out, Teft hesitated, then smiled faintly. Kellic knows that's true. Is there any significance for Kellic being mentioned in this chapter?
I think Sandoz just made a bunch of sayings that people say in regards to the Heralds.
Yeah.
Like there's another one that people say. They say Ash's eyes, because Shilash was like a really pretty herald. So like maybe Kellic had knowledge or something, like he was wise, and just one of those like religious sayings that seep into the world.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I just wasn't sure if there was anything like a little hidden meaning of what Kellic did or stood for, you know what I mean? I
mean, there's probably something to do with his personality that's dripped down into the religion. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I think. Do you have anything else for this chapter?
I just love how it ends. Like he would find a way to protect them, and it's just such a poignant line. Like, especially just seeing the end of part 1 after that, you're just like, yes, let's do this.
It's a bit of a let's go moment, right?
Yeah, let's go. That's the feeling. And then you're like rowing a boat in a lake for like 20 pages, and you're like, what is this book?
Nambalot. I don't know how to say it.
Oh my, yeah. You see all this, and you're just like, wait, is this? Do I have this right?
I just love the big like ancient page, and it just says interludes. It's like, oh, let's go.
Yeah,
achievement unlocked.
Yeah, honestly.
So
it's beautiful, and with that, she'll wrap up another episode down the hatch, mate.
Yeah, man. Awesome.
As always, guys, thank you for accompanying us on this episode of Lost in Roshar. Remember, the most important chapter a man can read is the next one. We'll see you next week to dive into our first 3 interludes.
And if you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, be sure to leave us a review on whichever platform you listen on. And if you have feedback, questions, or theories, spam read us at lostinroshar@gmail.com. We'll see you next time on Lost in Roshar. And remember to keep that safe hand covered.